Howdy, and welcome to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Nord, where we cover a mix of current events, politics, and the law. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome back to White Hat Law. I'm Warren Nord with Nord Law in downtown Arlington. And today with me I've got Craig Sims, the Executive Director of Arlington Classics Academy, and Mia Russo, who is going to be speaking on behalf of parents and teachers everywhere, not parents and administrative staff for the school. Full disclosure, I was a member of the organization, the early organization that put the school together, and I'm on the board today. But I love it before I was on the board, so that's why we're back. First thing we do is want to talk about what a charter school is, because apparently 20 years after they've begun, we still don't know exactly what a charter school is. Routinely run into people who are confused. Tell me, Craig, is a charter school a public school?
Absolutely. Charter schools are fully funded by public dollars and held to all the accountability standards that any other public school is held to.
And so that means they're taking money from the other public schools, right?
No, actually, that's one of the myths. So charter schools, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but charter schools are funded per pupil, just like ISDs or any other public school would be. The only difference is because we don't have a taxing authority or a geographic area, then basically they do an average of state aid across the state. So they just take all of the state aid that is paid to districts and ISDs, they do an average of that, and every charter in the state of Texas receives that per pupil amount as a basic allotment. And then because we're required to offer all of the special programs except GT, then all of the special allotment money that comes from the state to the ISDs follow that child based on their label.
What's GT?
Gifted and talented.
Okay. An acronym-free zone.
Sorry.
Okay. Or at least we have to define it early. Okay, so now at the beginning of time, I remember back when we first started, if we had a person from Mansfield ISD, then Mansfield would see that loss. We would get the amount of money that Mansfield was going to get but is not getting. So it's not that way now.
It follows the money follows the kid. So, but it's the same way in ISD. So when I worked in ISD, we were an open enrollment ISD, which means neighboring cities, students from neighboring cities could come to our school, and the state allotment that was given to that student would come with them. So it's based on ADA, your average daily attendance. So if that child from the neighboring district came to my school and the basic allotment that I received was $5,600, I would get $5,600 from the state. What I would not get, and what we don't get as charters, is the local property tax that the ISDs levy on their geographic boundary. And so if you live in Arlington, where we're located, all of your local tax property goes to the ISD as they levy the tax. As a charter, we only receive the state allotment.
Okay, so we don't get the property tax. So if we want to build if we want to build a building, we don't have access to that same set.
Right. That is one of the differences that is debated often in charters and ISDs, is that we don't receive facilities funding or even debt relief, really, or debt aid from the state. Now, in the last legislative session, they did approve $60 million, which would equate to about $183 per student, but we were running at a deficit of about $1,300 average across the state per student, less than the average ISD as a charter school. So it is nice that we got a little bit of money, but it's $183 versus $1,300. But still, the point isn't necessarily the amount of money that we're receiving, it's the amount of performance we're able to get out of the dollars that we do get. And so because we are a school of choice and parents have to make a choice to bring their child to our school, then obviously we have some benefit of parent involvement, and that parent involvement usually means that, for example, for us this year, we had over 900 registered volunteers. And so those parents help us out in the classrooms, they clean desks for us.
How many students do we have at ACA?
We have 1,521.
So out of 1,500 students, we have 900 volunteers out of that population.
Yes. Now, not all of them work at the campus every day. Some of those just register for field trips and things like that. But that's a large number that we process, and we go through all security checks and background checks, and and all of that. So, but for our school, what I'm proud to be, the reason I'm proud to be a part of it is because we've been honored really since 2014 by the comptroller, and
Yes.
then by some other watchdog groups that we have high performance with low cost, essentially is what it comes down to, that we're able to, by working with parents and students and with our staff, we're able to get high performance out of these kids.
Now, I've heard that charter schools don't have to take challenged children, and that's why you can do this such great value per dollar. Is that what's
No,
the situation there?
We receive federal dollars, and so that we have to comply with all federal laws, including IDEA, which is the law that governs Section 504, any disability. And so we have all those services, 504 services, special education, English as a second language or limited English proficient, at risk, state compensatory. We have all those programs. Now, we would be considered a small ISD in sorts, and so we can't say that we do all of those with, that we have the premier program in all those, but we have to meet state compliance. We have to serve these children based on their needs. But that's kind of our premise anyway as a
Right.
school. As a charter school, we want to give personalized and individualized education as much as possible. We're not just moving, groups of students through like you would in some kind of cattle lot. We're actually trying to talk to the parent about, well, your student seems to like math and science more, so this is what we can offer them here. And we do an accelerated program where we try to take the ceiling out. So
Right.
in so many academic programs, it's about meeting the minimum. So in Texas, that's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. So that's what every public school that receives public money has to do. We have to teach that. But for our students, we want to be able to go above and beyond that. And we offer core knowledge, not to be mistaken as Common Core. It's core knowledge, which is it's a classical approach where students are building some base knowledge. And the way that looks different to parents would be that our primary students, all the way down to kindergarten, are doing second language, Spanish. They're doing music and fine arts, but they're also building some base knowledge on Western civilization development, and they're building these facts that they're going to use later in especially the middle school years to be able to do the higher level thinking all the way up there. And so that's what we pride our school in.
Good. And now, I know at the beginning of time, when I was first involved, it was all about choice for parents and kind of almost escaping the public schools. But 20 years later, I mean, you were talking earlier about people are no longer so limited. Talk about that a minute.
Well, coming from an ISD, what I found so interesting about the last 20 years of charter growth is that the ISD has kind of woke up to the idea that parents have a choice. And so it's a different game you play as an ISD administrator. When you want to draw students to your programs, then you want to have high quality programs. And so the idea of school of choice is even offered through ISDs. And I know Arlington ISD has worked very hard to offer some great programs to their community. And we don't try to compete with those. We're not a STEM school. We're not what was the one? The Dual Language. Thank you. The Dual Language Academy. That's not us. That's not what we do. We're a classical approach public school, and we try to stick to those roots. And so our whole point is to accelerate student learning, hoping to get at least a year, if not more, of learning within a single year. And so I said in a meeting with Commissioner Morath one time when he was speaking to a group of people, and he said, over the last 20 years, Texas education has really done a great job. And some of the proof of that is that our graduation rates are the highest they've ever been, and that's partly due to the last 20 years. Boy, you just can't, you can't deny that the fact that charters came in the late 90s, that hasn't had something to do with, higher quality education. Not trying to bring in an element of competition, but that's what it did.
Right.
By nature.
It seems like it also brings in a kind of best practices. If a lot of parents in one area are looking for a particular subject matter or a particular approach, and it seems to be doing well, then other schools are naturally going to say, well, this is working for them over there, why wouldn't we do it here? It's not even so much a competition, it's just an imitation. Success brings imitation. And
success breeds success. And then
right.
I have 3 different kids. They're about 2 years apart, and each one learns differently. And it just worked out for my family that each one goes to it or has had a different educational experience. And Mia can probably talk a little bit about that too. That
right.
I have a daughter that's in public high school. She loves it. I've seen her grow in ways that I'd hoped she'd grow. I have my middle son is in classical conversations, which is similar to our school. My children can't attend our school because we're not in the attendance zone. But
we could fix that,
But he's in 7th grade, and he's in that true classical model, and he loves it. I thought Latin was going to kill him when we started it, but I see him last night at the dining room table doing his Latin, and he absolutely loved it. And so then my youngest son is very kinesthetic and really needs a lot of mobility, and we're able to provide that through a classical conversations homeschool model that he can get up and move around. And so we've been able to provide, because of parent choice,
right.
different types of education to meet the needs of our kids, and to still hold that sort of rigorous expectation for them.
Yeah, one of the things that I've liked with the development of charter schools is that we can have, instead of people having to flock to a high housing cost area, they can live where they need to live, and they can put their child in a high-performing school that they wouldn't necessarily be able to attend if they had to live in that neighborhood.
Absolutely, 20 years ago especially.
Right.
I mean, we have talked to real estate agents who, the number one thing when you're selling a house is you're selling the school.
Right.
Or the school selling the house. And so if, a potential buyer comes to a neighborhood and they love the house and they love the neighborhood, but, they may not think that the school is a good fit for them, they're not going to buy that house. But now, if we could get the information out there to parents,
right.
and say, you're not stuck with one choice. You have options. And for a community, I can't think of a better economic benefit that you're trying to draw people to your community and to say we have private school options and we have public school options. And so it could cost you nothing to have a great education. And if you want to go the private route, you can have that as well. But as a community, the more you can offer people come into your community, the better off you are.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a break real quick. We'll come back. We'll talk to Mia about what attracted her to Arlington Classics Academy and what else might attract people to Arlington Classics Academy. We'll be right back.
Hang on, y'all. More with Warren when we get back. Welcome back, folks. You're listening to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Norrid. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome back. And before we start this, I want to make sure that everybody recognizes that today, through the end of the month, this is February, in case you're seeing this later, open enrollment is going on for the Arlington Classics Academy. Mm-hmm. So just a little FYI, that's a teaser. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But first, let's hear from Mia. Mia, tell us about your experience with ACA.
Well, when my son was in preschool, I was, investigating what options were available for kindergarten. I knew we fed into a wonderful school in Arlington, but I wanted to know what else was out there. And his preschool teacher happened to have her children at Arlington Classics Academy. And so she told me all of these wonderful things, and I attended the kindergarten information evening, and I was so impressed. We toured the school, and I saw the work of the students at various grade levels on the walls, and I was truly impressed with the product that they were putting out. And so we attempted the lottery. We did not make it the first year, but we were fortunate enough to get selected when my son was in first grade, and we've been there ever since. He is now in 7th, so this is our 7th year, and I couldn't be happier. It's a wonderful school environment. He's surrounded by other children whose families put a high value on their child's education, and we've had a wonderful experience.
Well, that's outstanding. And I just, at the risk of hearing something I don't want to hear or do want to hear, how much homework does your child have to do?
I mean, he does have homework. You hear And I will say I was concerned that we were putting him in a very high stress environment. It is very manageable. Now there are some years that are more difficult than others, but some of that is maturity and their overall development. As they move along through the school, they're given additional responsibilities. There are some transitional years that are a little bit more difficult, but it is all very manageable. I would say on average he has maybe 45 minutes to an hour worth of homework sitting at the dining room table.
I hear different things on this, and we of course we have a goal, right? And as far as I'm concerned, I always wanted to say, look, if you're at least, not everybody has the same processor, right? And it's just a reality. I was hoping that anybody with at least an average processor, for lack of a better word, is willing to work hard could survive. And everybody who has an awesome processor that makes everything easy at least has to work a little bit.
Right.
And there are some people who are not going to be within that, that are not willing to work hard, or for whatever reason just aren't making it. And of course I have to tell people, look, the school is not for everybody.
That
and
is
so
true. That is true.
It does take parent support at home. Any learner, what we tell our teachers, what we ask our teachers to buy into when they come is that any learner willing to work, any family willing to put in the time and effort is going to benefit from our school. And all the way to middle school, where our students are walking away with 6.5 high school credits potentially when they leave 8th grade. And you don't get there without some type of acceleration. So you can't fit it in a 7.5-hour school day all the time.
Right.
And they also need some of that rote practice. But it's not our philosophy that every night there has to be homework. It's just that when it's beneficial, that sometimes it's going to be there, and as long as it's beneficial, it should be.
So if somebody has an ideological bent against any homework whatsoever, probably not our school. Probably not.
As a parent, no.
Right. So every once in a while you hear somebody talking about a school, and I tend to interject and say, excuse me, who are you talking about? And sometimes they're complaining about one school or another. And I have to say that whenever somebody says, I thought about putting my child in ACA, but we don't like homework, and we weren't willing to do homework, and I say, well, you made the right choice not to do that.
Well, some of it is dependent upon the child. My son is, I would say, a pretty average kid, and let's face it, he would like it as easy as possible.
Sure.
So if he sits down and just knocks the homework out,
right,
instead of procrastinate and find other things to
Call of Duty, there are bad guys got to be killed on Call of Duty.
Yeah, he could get it knocked out much quicker, but he is, like I said, a typical child, and he has been known to procrastinate on occasion. So, but by having these requirements and known requirements, he has to develop a skill set, and he has to take responsible notes, write things in his planner, and so all in all, he is learning, whether he wants to or not, he is learning how to study and to set priorities, and he's developing a skill set that will, carry him through not only high school but college.
Well, certainly there's a reality. If you're going to be professional in this day and time, you are going to spend time off hours when nobody's paying you to maintain your professionalism, just to know what's going on in the world. Whether you're an engineer or an attorney or a doctor or a teacher, whatever it is, people spend time away from the classroom setting or the homework or the setting where you're being paid, and you're going to have to do things on your own. So I think that it's almost critical that even the very brilliant have to do some homework sometimes, and there are a lot of people that go to college and their first year, it's all about learning. Wait, I was brilliant in high school and I got by without doing any work, and this is different from that. And so you wind up having 2 semesters of bad grades before you figure that out.
You have to learn to prioritize, and that's something I think he is definitely learning.
Well, I think we find that our students that go on to high school, because we traditionally only went through 8th grade, we have 9th grade now, but when they move on to whatever high school choice they want to go to, what we get as feedback is these kids are going into AP classes, they're going into the rigorous high school curriculum, and they're doing well. I'm not going to say they're finding it easy, but they're able to manage it because of the
Well
skills that
prepared,
they built through ACA. And so it's not. I would advise parents, and I always try to, especially in kindergarten, because that's where some of that culture shock happens. Because we try to warn people about our kindergartners. They have a strong writing program, and it's rigorous, and those kindergartners are writing paragraphs, at this time of year, and it wows me when I walk through the hallways. But it takes parent commitment to help us with that, to get to that point. And then there are ebbs and flows. We have teachers of certain content areas. Homework is more beneficial in certain areas than others.
Sure.
And so it's not just a general flat rule. It's just where appropriate and when needed.
Right.
And parents have to be willing to be committed to that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the lottery and getting into a charter school, or particularly getting into our school. What does a person have to do?
It's about the simplest thing you can possibly do. There's an online form. We talked about, I think you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, you can go to www.tryaca.com and you can get a link to the form there. It's a simple online form where you basically give us your contact information, your child's name, and what grade they're going to go into next year. That's all. There's no other information we take. Everyone is empowered to go to this form and submit, and then we do a lottery if we have more seats than we have students. And so
Now, people ask me, Warren, how can I get in and slide past the lottery?
you cannot.
And how does this lottery? How is it actually conducted?
So the only way that you, I guess the only exception to the lottery, I should say, is we are allowed by law to allow siblings to take a priority, but it's still as a seat is available.
Right.
So I guess in the lottery, siblings would come first, and we have sort of a sibling lottery that designates that order. But basically, we all sit in a room so that it's all very transparent. We have it all on the screen so people can see it. We assign every family a number. We use an online randomizer, and then we just create a new column on our spreadsheet.
Oh, so you just did old school, nearly old school. It's not like you diced, but you are using just an Excel spreadsheet with a...
Absolutely.
That's
it's
great.
all done in front of everyone. And then the challenge is, though, I wish we could tell someone exactly where they're at on the lottery list when they leave that day. But we can't do that because every family's given a number. So if you have 3 kids, you might be number 14 on the first grade wait list. You might be number 28 on the second grade wait list, based on your family number. So it depends on the grade level.
Okay, so what they could walk away with is worst case scenario,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't necessarily know.
They could generally know if they want to spend a little bit more time. But each year, almost all of our students say they're coming back,
Right.
and then over the summer, people move away or get a different job, and so we do have some that don't come back the next year, and that's when we really start filling in. And I do have parents who say that once their school starts, they're reluctant to take their kid out and put them into ACA because it's already started. But I would encourage parents, especially at the younger grade levels, to go ahead and make that change versus trying to risk getting back in the lottery the next year.
Right.
Because the earlier you get in, the more benefit you're going to have. Our program is accelerated from K through 8 to get those 6.5 high school credits. So our 7th graders are taking Spanish 1 high school credit. Our 8th graders are taking Spanish 2. If you don't come in till 7th grade, you're kind of behind the opportunity. You still could, get some of it. But
I've seen that a little bit, and it was a problem that we recognized early on. If you have a very accelerated program and you allow anybody to come in, so you've got openings in your 6th grade, and then anybody jumps into 6th grade, but our incoming 6th graders have been with us for 6 years,
mm-hmm.
and they're pretty high speed, and so a random 6th grader may or may not be able to come in. Is there a transition, or you talk to people during the summer, or do we just kind of hope for the best?
We talk to them about the challenges, but we also work with everyone. I mean, our goal is to personalize education, so we do not test or interview, or there's no kind of qualification that you have to have in order to get into ACA, but we want you to be informed about your choice. And so we'll offer an assessment and tell you kind of where your child is versus the other students and what they're going to be learning. We have all of our curriculum online, not what the students do, but our scope and sequence, our our goal for your student, what they're going to learn that year. And so our goal is to be as transparent as possible so that you're making the best educational choice for your child.
And I guess we're going to jump back just a little bit. If you are in an ISD and you want to go to one of these special schools, now they seem to have a lot more filtering, do they not? I mean, they say that they're the ones that have to take everybody and they give everybody the education and options, but they do interviewing for their special schools?
If they have magnet schools or really what's just become known as school of choice, they have the ability to put in some, I guess you'd say, restrictions. Obviously, because like us, they're only going to have so many seats.
Right.
So they may have 100 seats for this one special program, or 100 seats for a dual language program, or whatever it is, and they may have 500 applicants. So they have to figure out a way to match the best kids to the program.
But they don't do a lottery, though, do they?
Well, actually, I don't believe in some of them. Some of them do it. Grand Prairie, I think, is a good example. They did a great job of revamping their school, Grand Prairie ISD. Susan Hull, I believe, is the superintendent there, and she just embraced the whole parent choice, get rid of attendance zones. If we have seats in a school and you want to go there, we'll get you there. And they have a great career and tech center over there. Some programs are a little bit more, I guess, have a few more filters, but you know, it's their opportunity to offer their parents, their community, those choices.
Yeah, my only point on that is that people dig on us because they think that we're trying to filter. When we actually cannot filter as much as the ISDs do for their special schools that are competing with us.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, we don't, and I was going to get to that point, is that as an open enrollment public charter school, if you apply and you get in, we will meet the needs of your child to the best of our ability. And so, you know, whether they have special needs or they are gifted, we don't Arlington Classics Academy does not have a gifted and talented program, because our goal is for all of those students to work at that rigorous level. And they do have, obviously, individual needs that we try to meet as well, but we don't have the state mandated program.
Okay.
So that's a good point.
Now, Mia, you are no longer a mere parent. Tell us the rest of your progression.
Well, once we became members of the Arlington Classics community, I started out as a volunteer, and we helped try to establish an outdoor learning center. I volunteered in the classroom, field trips, typical, you know, room parent responsibilities. And as I got more involved in the school, I liked the direction the school was taking. I fully embraced, I guess, what the school stood for. And so I ran and became a member of the board of directors. And so I served on the board for 2 years, I believe, and an opening came up for the coordinator of fundraising and development, and I saw it as an opportunity to help further the school in that direction. So I applied and am now a member of our administrative staff.
And we're glad to have you. Let's talk about the accountability a little bit more. It's always bothered me whenever I hear detractors of charter schools say, well, there's nobody that's watching these schools very much. What kind of accountability do we have to deal with that perhaps would allay some fear on that perspective?
Well, one of my, I guess what attracted me to charter schools was I was in an ISD, and I did feel some of that tight bureaucracy, if you will, and I was really just in it for education, so I wanted some freedoms. And I had a friend working at Arlington Classics Academy who had me come over. But when I got there, I was looking for these freedoms that, on the education side, I'm not so sure were any different than what I was doing at ISD. And so, you know, I've been here 5 years now, and I'm still trying to identify some of those freedoms.
Right.
Because I feel like, number one, as a charter school, you're under so much scrutiny.
Right.
And probably as appropriate, because we are publicly funded. We have public dollars that we're using, and I do understand that there are some bad operators out there that give charters a bad name, but I also know that there's some ISDs out there that give ISDs a bad name. And so my goal, I guess with my career, is to bring attention to the good things that public education is doing. That we're not failing these parents, we are not failing our communities, and we're definitely not failing the state. But it takes all of us to do it.
Right.
You know, charters and ISDs. And we have an accountability system called the Charter School Performance Framework that I brought with me.
Oh, show it to the audience.
So I wanted to bring attention to it because not only do we have all of the same ones that ISDs would have in the sense of star ratings and the TAPR, which is the Texas Academic Performance Report, we have all of those. We also have a charter first rating, which is different than the ISD first rating, which is our financial performance, if you will. But we also have this charter school performance framework, which is a summary of all of our possible checks that the state could do to us at any time, and it's a summary of all the data that's out there on our school. I'm really proud to show it because I feel like it really gives an idea of how far above and beyond we go as a small school to meet the needs of our learners. And so in the bottom of it, under academic framework, you can see that there's a green line that goes across the chart there. That is the state accountability system. That's where if you meet that line, they consider you a Met standard school. But there's also on the charter performance framework, there's a blue line, and that blue line is basically a 90% passing rate. But that's what our department at Texas Education Agency, the charter department, has said. If we're going to be good stewards of public money and charter schools are going to be a benefit, that's our goal. Our goal is the blue line. And so you can see that in many areas, and this year's even better, in many areas we meet or exceed that line. And obviously in some we don't, but those are usually, there's reasons for that. There's reasons those kids wear those labels, but our goal is to meet that need for every kid. And so at ACA, I feel like there's probably a fourth and a fifth accountability system. And I think the number one accountability system is to the parent.
Absolutely.
That if they don't like what we're doing, all they have to do is walk in and take their child out without any hesitation or argument from us, even if we want to keep them.
Right.
We can't keep them there. And so our greatest accountability is to our local parents, the ones that we're serving every day.
I've found that seems to be lost on a lot of bureaucrats and critics. And people will take some of the statistics and combine them all together and say, see, charters are not doing the job that you say we're doing. And they will, as part of the statistics, will be people who were going to fail and drop out, but instead are getting something out of a charter school somewhere. Mm-hmm. And they would be dropped out. There's an actual charter school, I think, in Dallas, jail system right now. Well, that's probably not a high-performing charter. But if you were to ask the parents, would you rather have them going to that organization or not have it, they'd say, of course. And so whenever the state bureaucrats get together and they judge us wrongly because some parents have decided that their children should be at this school, which is not high-performing, that those parents are making a bad decision, or those children not being well served because they're not looking at the context where those children are. Mm-hmm. And the best judge of that will be the parents and not some bureaucrat 200 miles away living in Austin. And so it's quite irritating to me. Whereas our school, we see the standard, meet standard as foundational. Just because of where we are, we happen to have, and our kids, if you put our kids into a traditional environment, they may fail because they're so bored. And so it's not a matter of one size fits all. It's not even a matter of one school can fit all. Not even bureaucrats who want really hard to do a good job in some large ISD, which has all the resources in the world, they have to have a system for taking care of the mass of children that they have. And they can't focus on the gazelles. They just can't. And so rather than to treat everybody like puppies, all the puppies are 2 weeks old and they haven't opened their eyes yet, so you treat them one way and then you treat them a new way. No, you treat every child differently. You let them go where the parent thinks the child should go. So,
well, it is interesting. We found that we go to trainings, we send our teachers to trainings, and they talk about the change needed in education, and a lot of it has to do with personalization, that differentiated instruction, that kids, you need to meet the needs of the kids. In other words, it can't be as industrial as it used to be. Right. Based on Sir Ken Robinson gave a great speech at the last charter convention about the idea of charters was to be innovative, was to change the paradigm of education, and that was our goal. The more and more restrictions, though, given to charters or any public school, the less freedom they have to really answer to the local public Or, I mean, I can't tell you how many school board members when I was in ISD who said, I got on here to make a difference, but I feel like all we do is adopt whatever the state tells us to adopt. So that idea of local control is important. And in a charter, it's as local, to me, at least in our charter, as local as it can get, because we only serve this small community around our charter in general. I mean, our charter allows us to serve 3 counties because it was an early third-generation charter. But this is where we draw from, and so people are available to, or our charter is available to them if they want to drive to our campus and put their kids in.
And what 3 counties are those?
Dallas, Tarrant, and Johnson.
Dallas, Tarrant, and Johnson.
That's right.
Now, is there a chance we could change that and do something different?
You can expand. The rules have changed a little bit from the early days. So now we'd have to go to an area and basically show the demand,
right?
For a charter in that area or for our charter in that area. But you can do an amendment to expand.
Yeah. In the early days, we could have actual waiting lists. We had children who were newborns, 2 months old, I kid you not, on our wait list.
I do have people who have toddlers who say, "Can we get on the wait list now?" But you can't. There's no priority.
They changed that. In case you wanted to work hard and be a volunteer for our school for 5 years after your child's born, sorry, you have no better chance of getting on than somebody who just walked up because their neighbor happened to be going, and so they jumped in. Right. I'm not sure if I agree with that approach, but but the state didn't ask me. So, and I also noticed that as you just said, we have all of the restrictions and rules that all the other much bigger ISDs have. I always say that the I in ISD should mean more than it does. We have to have a person who's in charge of or knows all about asbestos programs, right? And we have to have. And now we're having to make sure that none of our suppliers are anti-Semitic because that was a recent passage. And of course, when I talk to the legislators that pass these rules, they go, "That's not what we intended at all." Mm. But it goes from legislature to law, then it goes to TEA, and TEA says this is how it's going to handle. And if we don't want to comply, well, we can turn in our charter, or ask the school board to give us some kind of waiver or something, which happens 0 times a year. Yeah. So
I often go to trainings where they say we know that it's almost impossible to accomplish all this. And at ACA, one of the things I pride myself on is we're about the same size as the school I was at when I was in ISD. But my central administration staff is about half the size. And we wear lots of hats at central administration because we want every dollar we can to go to the classroom. But unfortunately in charter schools, we have to take dollars from the classroom to pay for things like facilities because we don't get specific facility funding until we get that little bit of money we get next year. But when you talk about going into debt to build a building, there's no separate allocation of funds for that. We don't get a separate allotment for that. We go into debt, we go out for bonds, we're basically just taking out a loan and we're paying a mortgage. And that comes out of the money that is available to pay teachers or supplies in the classroom or offer programs. So it takes a large chunk to make it happen, but our school seems to make it work and make it work well, and it's because of the collaboration of the school, the parents, and the student, essentially.
Well, let's get... and that's one of the many things I love about our school. Just do a little bit of nuts and bolts real quick. Where are our facilities and how many people are there and what do we do at each facility?
So we have 3 campuses. 2 of the campuses are at Arkansas and Bowen. It's 2800 West Arkansas Lane, really in Arlington Gardens. And that's a K through 2 campus, which is our primary grade levels. And then our intermediate campus is also there next to that building, and it's grades 3, 4, and 5. So we have just a little over 1,000 students there. And then if you go down Bowen to south of 20, then right off Bowen we have our middle school campus, which is grades 6 through 9. And there's about 475 kids there. And our central administration office is also on that site.
And that shouldn't be confused with another charter school that has a facility over there. It's a much bigger building, but doesn't perform near as well as we do, right? I'll say that. Maybe Craig won't, but I'll say it. It's true. So is there anything else that we need to cover that we haven't covered?
No, I just think that the bigger discussion is that parents should have a choice. We're not trying to, I don't want to, as a charter, to be able to levy a tax or take from people's property taxes. I'm a property taxpayer. I just want to have the choice as a parent to say, this is the best fit for my kid right now.
Right.
And when I decide, that may change, then I should be able to make that change. And that's why I champion our parents, our teachers. I do want to give a shout out to our teachers, because we have the best teachers that you're going to find in Arlington. These people work tirelessly to make sure that not only that the TEKs are met, but that we go above and beyond that, and we try to individualize for these kids to the best of our ability. And I'm just amazed at the work that they do every day.
I have been told that we spend a lot more time on certain subjects than other schools that are nearby.
Well, we do. Our kids have science every day, for the most part. I mean, that's where the flexibility comes in. If a teacher says, no, this math lesson needs to go a little bit longer in the early grade levels, then that's what they do, because that's what's necessary. It's not a rote, you cut this off every hour kind of thing. That's the only way we can accelerate. But science is something I've seen all the way down through third grade that they get every day, hands-on learning. Social studies, like core knowledge piece, that development of Western civilization. And what I really love about the core knowledge piece is that it cycles through fine arts, that our music teacher and our art teacher and social studies core knowledge piece, that if they're studying ancient Egypt, then they're going to get it again in art, they're going to get it again in music. When they're studying composers, when they're studying artists, those are pieces that you don't see everywhere. Right.
Right.
And I enjoy that greatly.
And you can do that because we know we're going to go beyond the expectations that the state requires for us. So once you fly past that, then you can focus on excelling at a speed that is comfortable for you, and really get going. But you can't do that if you have kids that are going to be struggling with the basics. So it's helpful to say, these are kids that this population, we're going to meet expectations without any problem. We're trying to hit that upper mark.
And we have intervention, and the thing is, you might have a student that we do a nationally norm referenced assessment, and we've done it since I've been there. And so
Which
it
one
really
is
a tool. We currently use MAP, NWEA MAP assessment.
Okay.
We did use the ITBS, but we found that the way we were given the ITBS, we couldn't make changes to the instructional program for that child quickly, and it just wasn't as effective. So we moved to the NWEA MAP assessment because we get immediate results, and the teachers can take that data and actually share it with the parent, and then talk about what we can do to actually help that child. You might have a child reading at in third grade that's according to the test could potentially be equal to, say, someone in sixth grade taking the same assessment. But in math, it's not. It just doesn't work for them that way. They may
Right.
be on grade level or maybe even be a little bit below. But because they read so well, if you just look at one picture, one data point, you may say, well, that's a gifted child, and they probably are. But they still might need some support in math. And so with all these different data points we look at the STAR data, but more importantly, we look at the nationally normed data and our monitoring that we do with common-based assessments and things like that. What we try to do is really develop a program that says, I value where you're at right now, and here's the resources we can get you there. So if they are potentially in one content area a little bit behind, or even far behind, we try to put in interventions to get them on grade level or above.
Outstanding. Well, and now, Mia, in your position, you've seen us show up in certain rankings of best schools or things like that. Can you tell us about any of those?
Well, ACA has established a strong track record of high academic performance. We've had the highest rating from the TEA since 2007. We've also been ranked through niche.com. Our primary school was ranked the #1 elementary charter in Texas, and then our intermediate and middle schools were also ranked in the top 10 as well.
Outstanding. I know there's a bunch of those that I talk about them once in a while on Facebook. But was one like number 11 in the country or something? What was that about? It was
might
outrageous.
be the niche rankings also does national
rating. So that sounds like what that was.
So
yeah.
it is possible that they ranked high in the national.
And there
I
were
don't
a couple of
recall
years
those
that
numbers.
we ranked high on the children at risk study too. So it's interesting. I think one myth that we have to bust is that we charge tuition. There is no tuition charge. You cannot charge tuition. We're a public school, so
Right.
I
think I read somewhere where we can charge only for the same things that every public school can charge for.
we can charge any fee an ISD can charge, right?
But we don't have buses. We have a cafeteria.
Absolutely, we have a great food program, wonderful food. Actually, we often eat there ourselves.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so tryaca.com and open enrollment is until the end of this month, February 28th. And so I want to thank my guests, Mia and Craig, Arlington Classics Academy. If you have any questions, you can go to tryaca.com. You got to say it like 3 times and everybody gets it. So we appreciate your attendance, and we'll expect it next time. We'll call class. Thanks. Good day.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and we want to thank you for listening to the White Hat Law Show here with Warren Norrid. To find out more about Warren, check him out at norridlaw.com. See you next time.